And I'm having to use tables now to get my stuff on. And so we are going to pick up in Genesis chapter 11, starting with 31. Or 27, I'm sorry, 27 is going to look at Terah, which is Abraham or Abram. It's his dad. He's going to have two other brothers. He's going to have 3 children. So kind of to get you kind of caught up, from chapter 1 to chapter 11, men are running from God. You have you have Adam and Eve hiding from God. You have the destruction of everyone except 8 people. You have the Tower of Babel, which people are spread away from God. But then you get to chapter 12 through chapter 50, and you see how people are running not from God, but to God. This is the patriotic chapters. From now on, it's all about Israel. Okay? It's all about God establishing His covenant with Israel. God establishing His covenant with that nation, and that covenant is still today. A covenant, of course, is just a promise. It is not made to a person. It is made to a general group of people. So this is the covenant, the Abraham covenant that we're going to be looking at later on. There's 4 people that's very prominent from now on in Genesis. You have Abraham, you have Isaac, you have Jacob, and then you have Joseph. Abraham is from chapter 12 through chapter 24. Isaac is from chapter 25 through chapter 27. Jacob is from chapter 28 through chapter 26. And then Joseph, who is spoken of more than any of them, is chapter 37 all the way through chapter 50. Each one of these individuals are types. This is, if you believe in typology, are types. All of these individuals are types of Christ in one way or another, especially Isaac and especially Joseph are types of Christ. Besides Christ, of course, in the Bible, the second most important person is going to be Abraham, because he is the father of millions and millions and millions. Abraham, now, people will differ on what year this is or how long, but Genesis is going to span roughly around 2,300 years altogether. From creation to Babylon, it's going to be about 1,600 to 2,000 years. They really can't pinpoint it, but that's just kind of a general ballpark figure. I do good keeping up with what happened yesterday, much less times and back in Genesis. But the interesting thing, from Abraham to chapter 50, you're only dealing with about 350 to 375 years. That's it. Now, if you look from chapter 1 through chapter 11, you deal with creation, the creation of man, the creation of the world, creation of the universe, the creation of everything. You deal with the flood, you deal with the repopulation of the earth, and then you deal with Noah and his family, and then you deal with genealogy. That is just from one chapter, from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 11. We call that I guess you can call it the creation flood stage. Now, from chapter 12 all the way through chapter 50, God deals with Israel. Israel being planted, Israel sprouting, Israel flourishing. So, you deal with creation from chapter 1 through 11. But almost the entire book of Genesis, chapter 12 through 50, deals with Israel. So which one is most important to God, creation or Israel? Israel. Now, is Israel still God's apple of His eye? Absolutely. We studied that in Revelations. Now, so we're dealing with Abraham. I'll call him Abraham up until right now he is known as Abram. but I'll still call him Abraham, all right? Abraham, when everything begins for him, is going to be 75 years old. We know nothing about his childhood. We know nothing about how he was brought up. We just know at 75 years old he started. People at 75 years old now, they retire. But not Abraham. He starts. Now, as far as the Old Testament goes, you have your prominent figures in the Old Testament. Abraham, according to Hebrews chapter 11, is a man known for his faith. It is a faith chapter. Good job. So he is a man of faith. Moses, he's known for what? The law, the giver of the law. You have Joshua. He was basically a military individual. Caleb was a military individual. David was the greatest king, earthly king that has ever lived. Daniel was a great statesman for his people. And then you have people like Elijah and Elisha, Jeremiah. You have your major prophets and your minor prophets. But it all starts with one man, Abraham. And all of these individuals I just named, Moses, Joshua, Daniel, Caleb, those people are built upon one thing that Abraham is built upon, and that is faith in God. When you read the book of Hebrews, it's usually called the roll call of faith, because it says by faith this, by faith that. So Abraham is the man that is known by his faith. Okay, now, when you look in verse 27 of chapter 11, and if you think about it, if you look at this, the last time God speaks to man, now I know that he speaks when he's talking about the Tower of Babel, but the last time he speaks to man is when before Abraham? Noah. And then you have all these silent years. And then God finally speaks up again to who? Abraham. God is very particular who he speaks to. All right? He spoke to Adam. He's going to speak to Noah. And then he's going to speak to Abraham. Those are the first three people that you hear him speak to. Of course, he's going to speak to Joseph and the rest of the people. But the beginning of Genesis, God speaks only to Noah, to Adam, and to Abraham. God speaks most of all, or the most that God speaks to the person in the book of Genesis is Moses. God never speaks to the children of Israel. He always speaks to Moses to tell the children of Israel this. God does not speak to the children of Israel. That's why I have a problem when people say, I was laying in bed and God spoke to me in an audible voice. Okay, he only spoke to maybe 20 people in the Old Testament. That's it. You know, and these people are major figures in the world. But I believe the Holy Spirit moves upon people. I really do. Now, as far as God saying, hey, Chris, you know, you may believe that, but that's just kind of my thing. Now, if you look in verse 27 of chapter 11, you hear of a man by the name of Terah, or Terah. All right? He is going to be the father of Abraham, or Abram of Abraham. Now, he is going to have three sons, Abram, Nahor, and Haran. All right? What is interesting about this is that we are told about an individual by the name of Lot, L-O-T. So you have Terah, and then Terah, and you have Abram. These are his sons, Abram, Nahor, and then you have Haran. Haran has a son. Now, I didn't put them all up here, but Haran is the father of Lot. Okay? And everybody knows about Lot. Okay, now. And then it says that Haran, who is Lot's dad, I'm trying to keep this real simple, who is Lot's dad, dies before his father dies, which is Terah. So it's one of those situations where the son dies before the dad. And that leaves Lot a what? Orphan. And back during the Bible times, Old Testament times, if Tanner and I are brothers, and he has a son, Tanner dies before his son, I have the responsibility of his son. That is the way that works. So what happens is that when Lot's dad passes away, guess who is responsible for Lot now? Abraham. We give Lot a real big burden about bringing Abraham out of Ur of the Chaldeans. But guess who his son really is, as far as Old Testament goes, is Lot. Okay? So he is going to take up the mantle and he's going to raise Lot. Now, I will get it in that in a minute. Now, Haran died before his father Terah in the land of Ur of the Chaldees. Now, I don't know where my map went. Do y'all know where that map went? Huh? Will you go get it? Ur of the Chaldees. I meant to find it today, then I heard all the ghostesses in here and around. Is it in there? Is it in your room?
I'm not sure.
If it ain't no big deal, don't worry about it.
I don't think it is.
Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is.
It's not up here.
I got it, Sherman. Thank you.
Hurry up.
I'm coming. All right. Here's where Abraham's from. All right. This is Persian Gulf. And of course, we already talked about earlier that Garden of Eden somewhere right here. Okay? Between the Tigris and the Euphrates. Ur is going to be right here in this general area. Okay? That is where Abraham was born. That is where he was raised. Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay? Babylon, that is where he was basically raised, in this general area. When the people was told to disperse after the Tower of Babel, Abraham and his family stayed put. They didn't leave. They stayed right here. Okay? So, he's going to be in this general area. Iraq, Iran, and that general area. That's where Ur is from. That's where Ur is. So this is where Abraham is going to be at. His father, now remember, this is going to be the promised land. This is what Abraham is going to inherit. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Now, and when Haran dies, the father of Terah, they are in the land of Ur. You are of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. And the name of Abraham's wife is Sarai, or Sarah, or Sarai. And the name of Nahor's wife is Milcah, the daughter. So there you go. They get married. Pretty basic story. Abraham and his brother, they're going to marry. Now, Abraham has already taken the responsibility of Lot. So that's basically going to be his. He's going to have to raise him. Okay, now, let's go to verse 31. And Terah, which actually his name is interesting. It means to hold back or to delay. All right? And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, which would have been his what? No, Terah is his grandson, but it'd be Abraham's nephew. All right? So, and they went forth from Ur of the Chaldees. So they're going to leave. Time to go. Got to get out of here. All right? Now, when we think of Ur of the Chaldees, this is what is interesting. We think of this place as being a backwoods hick town. Ur of the Chaldees, back during this time, would be considered the metropolitan of learning, of wealth, of land, of everything. Everything centered right here. Okay? That is why Babylon was such a major empire, because it's basically located in this general area. You remember back during the 90s, the big Gulf Wars, we was always fighting over what little piece of land? Ocean. Persian Gulf. It's always something about Persian Gulf. Okay? Very fertile land. Mathematics, your writings, everything centered right here. If you were somebody or anybody, you went to Ur to live. So Abraham wasn't no backwoods country boy. He was a city guy. Okay? Now, manufacturing, your cotton, your silks, all that kind of stuff come from there. Now, this is what is interesting. They had two temples. All right? two temples in this place. They had two temples dedicated to an individual named Nannar, and they had a temple dedicated to his wife, Ningal. Nannar is a moon god. That is what they worship there. They worship the moon. Okay? We say, well, Abraham come from a godly family. Go to Joshua 24. I'm trying to slow down, but sometimes I think it's Joshua 24. Joshua 24. This is what's interesting. You'll see the word Shechem, which means back or shoulder before that. That's a very, very prominent place in Abraham's life. But let's look in verse 2. Joshua said, this is 24. Joshua said to all the people, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in the old time, even Terah, and who's his son? Abraham, and the father of Nachor, and they served the true God of Israel. His idol worshippers. Nahor was an idol worshiper. Abraham didn't come from no godly family. He worshipped the moon. He worshipped this moon god. So you see what kind of influence. Now here's the thing. If his dad, now this is just speculation, if his dad was an idol worshiper, what were the chances of his boys following suit? Because you remember you're dealing with these of course the Jews will come out of this lineage, but you're dealing with a time where whatever dad was, you were. You didn't veer off of anything. If you were living in this area and everyone there worshipped the moon god, and dad did too, and had moon god stuff sitting all on his dashboard of his Buick and all that, and in his house, you're going to do what dad does. Right? So more than likely, Abraham is an idol worshiper. Okay? Now, what is interesting is that they go to the land, they are told, it says they go forth from Ur to go to the land of Canaan, and when they came to Haran, they were told to leave here and go here. Canaan. Canaan's happy land, milk and honey. All those old gospel songs. And what is interesting, Canaanites, okay? Now, they are told to go here. But you'll notice his dad's name means to hold back or delay. Goes here. Why didn't he just go straight to Canaan? He decides, I'm just going to go right up here. You know what this is called? We have it in our lives today. It's wasted time. That's what it is. He takes his family and he leaves and he goes all the way up here to Haran. And all this is just wasted years for Abraham. Now I want to show you something. In the days of Terah were 205, and Terah died in Haran. Wasted. You got a guy by the name of Abraham or Abram, and he's 75 years old, and he is told to leave, and he is told, or they were going to go from here to Canaan. But they decided they're going to go up here. What is interesting now is that God is going to speak to Abram after somebody is dead. Guess who's holding Abraham back? Dad. Family. So, now that picks us up in chapter 12. I know that was a 30-minute introduction. All right, we're going to jump into this. Here we go. Now, when you're looking at this and it says, and the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and away from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee. He's going to show, then he's going to make the covenant. Okay? It's kind of like if I have a car for sale and you say I want to buy it. Well, give me the money and then I'll show you what the car looks like. It's not going to fly, is it? Okay? He says, I'm going to show you this land. Now, despite what people say, this is still the Hebrews' land. This is still the Jews' land. And it begins in chapter 12. God tells him, he says, get away from thy kindred and from thy father's house and go to a land where I'm going to show you. Now this is what it is known as the Abraham or the Abrahamic covenant or promise. This is not to Abraham per se. This is to who? Israel, his seed and his offspring. Okay? He says, I'm going to make, he doesn't say I'm going to make you great. I'm going to make you great, and what's going to come out of you is a great nation. It's a domino effect. Now this covenant, you have two types of covenant. You have a conditional and an unconditional. You only have about one conditional, and that is when God basically tells Adam and them, listen, you do this, do that, we'll be fine. Don't eat from that tree. Who's the condition fall on? Adam and Eve. Don't fall on God. But from now on, all of your covenants are unconditional, and they fully rely not on man, but they're going to rely on God. And we'll kind of get into that later when Abraham and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and God puts Abraham in that deep sleep, and you have the sacrifices on either side. Abraham's asleep. God walks through the sacrifices, meaning this covenant is unconditional. It's going to fall on me. I'm going to be the one responsible, not Abraham. Okay? So, and this is the promise. Okay? This covenant or this promise. And I want you to look at this, all right? This is what I'm going to do. And I will make, now this is going to be a sevenfold covenant or a sevenfold promise. Has nothing, Abraham is just kind of a sidebar of this. Okay? Everything else is going to come out of Abraham. And what is interesting is that it still holds true today. It says, I'm going to make you a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and will curse him that curse thee, and thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Starts with Abraham and ends with who? Not with Abraham. It don't start and finish with Abraham. It starts with Abraham and finishes with Israel. Still today. Now, so he says, I want to make a great nation, bless thee, make a great name, be a blessing. I want to bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. If you study anything through the Old Testament, when somebody comes up against Israel, what happens? Unless God puts Israel into captivity himself with the Assyrian and the Babylonian. They're defeated. Even today, for those of you who are military people, military buffs, if anybody has ever tried to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, what happens? They're defeated. You're not going to get rid of Israel. We already know that by studying Revelations. And this promise goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 and verse 2 and 3. If they bless you, I'm going to bless them. Is this talking about money? It's talking spiritually. Okay? Now, so Abram, this is what he's going to do. Abram is going to depart as the Lord had spoken unto him. And guess who he brings now? So you can say we shouldn't have brought him or he should have brought him. We don't really know, but what we do know is that the whole time that Lot is with Abraham, he is a thorn in his side. Lot gets kidnapped by a bunch of people, and Abraham has to go to war with 5 other kings, and they have to get Lot back. Lot, as you remember, goes down, he dwells in Sodom and Gomorrah, loses his wife, his 2 daughters get him drunk, and then they have kids, and that's when you got those people, Moab and Amorites. So the whole time that Lot is with Abraham, guess what? He's a thorn in his side. Should he have took him? I don't know. Because Abraham, guess what? His dad's dead. So guess who Abraham's got to take up for? Lot. All right, so that's just a matter of opinion. But it tells me, it says, and Abraham departed, verse 4, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. I'm going to go on a limb and say he should have left him. Okay? I think he should. But anyway and anyhow, he brought him, and then you have God's providence that's going to intervene. And anything the devil tries to disrupt, God's going to counter that. All right? And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. 75-year-old man. All right? And he is going to take his family. Now, Lot is not poor. He is probably, or was probably, one of the wealthiest individuals in Ur. Very wealthy. Extremely wealthy. Now, and Abraham took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, all of their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth into the land of Canaan, and to the land of Canaan they came. All right? So they're leaving here, and they're going here. Very, very, very wealthy people. These are not poor folks. Now, this is what is interesting. God has already told him, this is what I'm going to do for you. All right? Now, God is going to appear unto Abram. God never appeared to Noah. Spoke to him, but he never appeared for him, did he? And the Lord appeared unto Abram, and this is what he says, Unto thy seed I will give this land. And there builded he a what? Altar. Okay? And the Lord who appeared unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east side of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, Haran on the east, and he builded an altar unto the Lord, and he called upon the name of the Lord. This is where he is at. He is in a place that is called Shechem. It's about 43 miles from Jerusalem, about 7 miles from Samaria. So he's in this general, if you're looking at your Bible map, he's kind of in between Judah and in between Galilee. He's kind of in that general area. The first thing he does, he's going to build an altar. You notice that word is in there twice. He's going to build an altar unto the Lord, and he's going to build an altar unto the Lord. Okay? And Abram journeyed going on still. He didn't stop. He's continuing going on southward. All right? So he's left Ur. He's got his family. He's got his servants. He's got his slave. And he's got Lot. And he's got all of his substance. He's got his sheep. He's got his goats. He's got everything. He's got this caravan, and they are moving to Canaan. But something happens. All right? And just like in everybody's life, sin creeps in. Abraham, although was a man of faith, was listening to God, something happens in his life and he panics. Okay? Now remember, every time you see the word Egypt or talk about Egypt in the Old Testament, it is referring to the world. Okay? What is interesting, you're dealing with Canaan and you're dealing with Egypt. Those are the two factors here. Alright? Now, and there was a famine in the land. This is what is interesting. It tells us that Abraham had a lot of money, basically, right? What is a famine to him? No big deal. He's got plenty of sheep. Got everything he wants. But he takes his eyes off God, and guess where he puts them to? The world. He starts thinking the world is going to solve his problems. There's something happening, so I'm going to pull back from God, and I'm going to rely on the world to solve everything or to help me out. And there was a famine in the land, and Abraham, is he ever told to go to Egypt? Whose decision is that? His. Abraham, every time he makes a mistake is when he quits listening to God and he starts making decisions based on what he thinks is right. There was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt. Notice it says he does not go unto Egypt. He gets involved in Egypt. He goes into, he leaves Ur, Haran, Shechem, and travels all the way here. And he is deep in the heart of Egypt. Okay? He has left an ungodly, idol-worshiping place, has went to a place, built an altar to God, left that altar, now he's going to a place that makes this place look like a Sunday school picnic. Well, they got thousands of gods in Egypt. Okay? Do you know why? He's doing what becomes second nature to him already. Abraham, for the first 75 years of his life, all he's known is a moon god. God speaks to him some. He builds an altar. Things get bad. Going back to my gods. Okay, this is neat. But you'll notice how there is going to be a son that's going to come out. There's actually two, but the one that matters is going to be a boy by the name of Isaac. Okay, Sarah right now, does she have kids? Okay, now, and it says, and this is what he says: He came, and when it came to pass, as he was come near to enter into Egypt, he says unto his wife Sarah, Behold, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. She's 60 years old. Okay? She must have been a good-looking woman. Because he is going to tell her, listen, you're hot. If we go to Egypt, somebody's going to take you away. Okay? She must have been just drop-dead gorgeous. All right? He says, I know. And he said unto Sarah, and she probably never got offended at this. You're a fair woman to look at. Yeah, I know. And it says, he said unto Sarah, or Sarah his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore, it shall come to pass when the Egyptians, if he already knows this is going to happen, why go? This is basically like, listen, when we get down there, then we're going to get robbed. We're going to have guns. It's going to be awful, but we're still going to go. All right? It's kind of like Lot. He knew what he was getting in. You're not going to tell me no otherwise. He knew what he was getting in when he went to Sodom and Gomorrah. Because guess where Lot lived the majority of his life? There. So he knew what he was doing. So basically, Abraham says, listen, these Egyptians, he says, when they see thee, this is very interesting. This is, and it says, when the Egyptians shall see thee, and they will say, is this your wife? And they're going to kill me. But they shall save thee alive. Why go? If I go down there, they're going to kill me and they're going to take you. The Pharaoh's he's got these concubines and 1,000 wives. He's going to kill me, he's going to take you. All right? You notice she never says, we don't need to go. He's already said, man, you're good looking, you're fair to look at. I know. So now, with that in mind, and he knows what is going to happen, he still goes. So I pray thee, thou art my sister, that they may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Go back. I'm going to go back and read that. I'm going to say you're my sister, and it shall be well with me by your sake. Who's all this about? Yeah. Abraham. Okay? And that my soul is going to live. And he's basically saying, I don't really care what happens to you, just make sure I don't get killed. That's what he is saying. And he says, this is what you got to understand. Even though when they go in there and say, well, she's my sister, is that going to stop that Pharaoh from saying, still going to be my wife? No. It's all about Abraham. Okay? You tell him you're my sister, he's going to marry you, but at least I'll be alive and have all my stuff. All right? So, and when it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. All right? So right when she walks in, everybody is just, good Lord, did you see who just got into town? She's amazing. Now, we have a guy, and the princess also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. He knew it was going to happen. Okay? This is what is interesting. Who is going to come out of Abraham and Sarah is going to be the lineage of Jesus Christ? Isaac. Do you think for 1 minute God is going to allow her womb to be desecrated by an Egyptian? No. Okay? This is what is so amazing. Soon as she goes in, Pharaoh says she's going to be my wife. And he entered Abraham well for her, and he entreated Abraham well for her sake. It's amazing. He never argues with this guy. You know what Abraham really is about early in his life? Right there. That's what he likes. He likes that money. But do you know where he gets this from? All he's known is this. Do you notice how God is slowly molding Abraham? And even though Abraham, one of the greatest besides Jesus Christ, one of the greatest individuals that has ever took a breath of life, he still had sin in his life. And he still had faults. I mean, guys, if Abraham can do that, I mean, what chance do we have, really? That is why we have to continuously lean on God and His grace and His blessings. I want to finish with this. And he had treated Abram well for her sake. Sheep, oxen, asses, men servants, maid servants, she asses, and camels. It's all about that money, isn't it? What I can get. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you and we thank you. Thank you, dear God, for this amazing individual named Abram. Thank you, dear God, that we are allowed to see his faith. But, dear God, thank you that we are allowed to see his faults. That we can know, dear God, even though we have the faith of a mustard seed, we can move mountains. We're still going to have our faults. And, dear God, we ask you that when we do sin and our faults do come to surface, that you forgive us. And, dear God, that you'll always keep our eyes not on Egypt, but always on Canaan. Dear God, for the prayer requests we heard, we lift them up to you. In your name we pray. Amen.